Hello and welcome to Right for America, issues that unite, don't ignite. I am your host, Cindy Gross, known to many of you as the Jewess Patriot. But as you know, you don't have to be Jewish to be a part of our show because our show features headlines and trends that all of us are talking about. And today's show really is all about the headlines, that's for sure. But before I begin, like each and every show, like you saw before, I just came on the disclaimer from the America First Warehouse. I must say that the America First Warehouse, WGBB, Cindy's Corners Productions, and all the outlets that features Right for America do not necessarily agree with all the views of our guest, but we let them speak because this is a place where we believe in the First Amendment and we are not responsible for anything that they say. Also, as many of you know, I open each and every show with my pearls of wisdom because my Jewish name is Zisel Pearl, which means sweet pearl. And I have some fun in my pearls of wisdom opening today. First of all, as many of you see, I'm in my red, white, and blue Pride of America because today is July 1st, and many of you have started celebrating today your 4th of July, your Independence Day, a day that you're really proud to be American, a day where the Senate just approved the big, beautiful package going now back to Congress that President Trump ran on, and a day where we see a lot of hope and future for peace around the world, as we have learned that President Trump is going to be meeting Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu from Israel in Washington this week. I'm sorry, Monday. Well, it is within the week, and that we are hearing a lot of things going on around the world. So we have a lot to celebrate. And with that, I want to go back to 1776, that when we got our freedom and our independence, and we learned a lot about being self-sufficient and proud Americans, a group of many people together and coming together as one. I want to take it now to 1976, 200 years later, because I remember that year very well and all the anticipation and excitement of the year before leading up to the big celebration and the actual celebration itself, because so many of us are talking about the next year's celebration for the 250th. So let's go back 50 years. For me, it was very exciting. It was the year of my bat mitzvah. And that was a year I was partying every weekend, going to big, glamorous bar and bat mitzvahs. But for many of us, the highlights were Jimmy Carter becoming president. And we should learn from that what happened. He only won by a small majority. Well, we also had the first Apple and Microsoft computers, and look how it's gone. And we're going to be talking about AI later on in the show. The Summer Olympics took place in Montreal, and of course, a big name there was Bruce Jenner, who many of us know is a proud supporter of the America First movement and President Trump. On TV, Charlie's Angels. Boy, do we miss those days when there were just 3 channels and everybody watched them because ratings were never the same after the growth of streaming. The number 1 song was Silly Love Songs by Wings. The number 1 movie was Rocky. And of course, we all love Sylvester Stallone. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of talk about Rocky in the next year, especially with President Trump and Sylvester Stallone. And there was a lot going on of happiness and celebration. Let's start today as a year-long preparations for a big celebration. We have a lot to work for next year, keeping the House, growing the Senate, building our local governments. So please, if you are at an age where you remember the excitement of 1976, share it with your children and grandchildren and friends. and remind them it's a lot of fun to be part of a celebration. Speaking of celebration, we are talking a lot about somebody who is celebrating a victory that America First and MAGA is not happy about. And that is Mr. Mamdani, who won the Democratic primary in New York City. Well, people on the outskirts of the five boroughs are quite concerned about the impact his victory will be in November. And joining me, coming in, is the comptroller, a dear friend of mine, Elaine Phillips, who has worked the private sector in Manhattan and has been a very successful comptroller in the safest county in the country, Nassau County.
Right.
Thank you so much for joining us at Right for America. And please, there's so much going on. Tell us, first of all, so many people are talking about this person that we didn't even know his name a year ago, and now he's going to be the probable mayor of New York City. Tell us the impact it's going to have on Nassau County.
So, good afternoon, Cindy, and thank you very much. It's wonderful to represent the people of Nassau County, and Nassau County is the place that people want to live. Why? Because we don't tell people how to live in Nassau County. What government does here in Nassau County is we make the American dream more accessible. We help people build their lives, build their futures for themselves, for their families, and for their grandchildren ahead. So we know socialism is not compatible with what people want. What do people want? People want security. They want financial security. They want their children to be able to ride their bikes down the sidewalk. And I don't care if that's in suburbia Nassau County or the streets of Brooklyn. We all want to feel safe. Here in Nassau County, we didn't defund the police. We fund our police force. We've added over 300 new police officers just in the last 3 years. And that is working collaboratively with our great county executive, Bruce Blakeman, working with our county attorney, working with our district attorney, Ann Donnelly, to make sure that Nassau County residents feel safe. And I'll tell you, we didn't stop there. We added more members to our prison system, COBA members. We have a state-of-the-art training facility. We've added, thanks to David Mack, an amazing training facility. And now we've expanded it into this wonderful village where our police officers can train. There's buildings there's a municipal building, there's a school, there's a train platform, there's a building that replicates a house of worship. So our police officers are on the ground training, making sure that we can respond to anything. And let's talk about those houses of worship also. Our commissioner, Patrick Ryder, our police commissioner, is accessible. He is a friend to every religion here in Nassau County.
I could vouch for that myself. The minute you call him, I mean, he's been in my house talking about security issues, and it wasn't limited just to Jews, because people of all backgrounds are victims of random attacks, because an attacker doesn't necessarily know who they are attacking.
That's right. And if they do, it needs to be shut down immediately. And that is exactly what Nassau County does. We respect people's rights. Our police department respects people's rights, but there is right and there is wrong. And we make sure that happens. And I'll tell you, every religious leader, may it be our rabbis, may it be our house mosques, may it be our Christian religions, all have Commissioner Ryder's cell phone. We have a direct office in the police department for non-emergencies, and they have an app on their phone for emergencies. So we are making sure not only the houses of worship, their congregants, but all people in Nassau County are safe. You know, someone said to me, and I'm going to share it, Mamdani makes Bernie Sanders looks like he should be working for the Wall Street Journal's editorial board. Socialism is not what we need. John Kazmatidis wrote an article in the Wall Street Journal today, and I want to read the title of it. Want Soviet breadlines? Vote for Mamdani. And he correctly states in today's article that what Mamdani is suggesting has already been done by, guess who? Hugo Chavez in Venezuela, Fidel Castro in Cuba. And if the people of New York City want to wipe out every bodega in New York City, vote for that man.
So I know the Katsimatidis, and I know that he said publicly he will take every Gastides and close them and put them elsewhere. He will take the Red Apple Radio, WABC, take it elsewhere. He is already developing in Florida, in New Jersey. He will go out of state, and his daughter is the Manhattan Republican chair. So it's very and going into business. I'm glad you discussed the Katsimatidis, because having a discussion with many of my neighbors, some of them think that this doesn't have an impact, and some of them thinks it will have on surrounding areas like ours. Now, you and I had this discussion, and I want to share it. You are in charge of money. You're the comptroller. So for businesses, small businesses that are going to not be able to survive the 5 boroughs, or people who are middle class, like the Blacks and Hispanics who did not vote for Mamdani in the primary, opportunities are here in Nassau, and you are going to be spearheading a lot of them. So please share that with the audience.
Thank you, Cindy. And that is exactly, come to Nassau County. If you have a business, you want a great way of life, come to Nassau County. So let me give you a few examples. And I'm going to start right there with Black Americans. So what we have done just in the last year, we have signed up over 500 new MWBEs here in Nassau County. And we have taken our purchasing power as a county, and we now have a target of 15% for MWBEs. Our discretionary money, which is anything from muffins to helicopter parts. Our first stop isn't with big corporations. Our first stop is a veterans-owned business, an MWBE, or just a white American that owns a small business, or Hispanic or Black or, Indian that hasn't quite gone through the MWBE project yet. Over 50% of our discretionary spending stays right here in Nassau County. Let me tell you another thing. When you were a vendor with Nassau County, prior to this administration, over the last 4 years, prior to 4 years ago, it would take you over 3.5 months to get paid. Now, to all your listeners that are a small business, middle-sized, medium-sized business, how many businesses can afford the cash float to lend to Nassau County for 3.5 months? Now you're paid in 10 days or less. let's not stop there. We have not raised Nassau County property taxes in 4 years. In 4 years, and no plan to do it this year or next year. We've also eliminated $150 million that the prior administration, a Democrat, wanted to put in place and actually had in the multi-year plan. So we are holding taxes down. We are creating efficiencies. We are making it easier for businesses to do business here in Nassau County. And that creates that economic circle. That means our workers go to the delis and get their sandwiches, go to the local barbers. 4 years ago, if you were a barber, a nail salon, or hairdresser, you could not get your renewal of your license. They were backed up by over 3,000 renewals, not new license renewals. Now they are totally up to date, and we have a Spanish-speaking interpreter there at all times. So we're making it better to live and work in Nassau County, not telling people, which is exactly what socialism does. Wake up, New Yorkers, wake up.
People are like floored that this person even won. They didn't even know his name. And I'll be honest, you see the numbers. It's very hard knowing the registered Republicans and independents even combined doesn't match what the Democrats are in the 5 boroughs. But I will say I was very impressed by the fact that all 4 Long Island congressmen are in unison speaking out what Mamdani can do to New York State and to Long Island as a whole. And that is very, very, very important and should be something that every voter should listen to.
You know what? This is not the Democratic Party that we have known for years. You know what? I'm a proud Republican, but I have many friends that are Democrats. Shame on the party. This is not who needs to be making New York City better.
You're absolutely right. And of course, I've been saying this all along. And I always tell people if you were registered Republicans from the beginning, instead of playing back and forth, you would show a viable second party as a choice and scare the Democrats. Unfortunately, in places like Manhattan, like Chicago, like Los Angeles, like Detroit, they don't really care because they know that the Republicans are so weak, and shame on the National Republican Party to let this happen this way, because it would be really, really great for New York as a state to work together and have a strong state party. I mean, we're very lucky. We take it for granted how strong our Nassau GOP is. And people are very envious of us all over the country. I hear it from everybody.
Well, and I'll remind your listeners, there are over 100,000 more registered Democrats here in Nassau County, but Republicans win because here in Nassau County, we represent the people. We represent the values, the family values, the safety and security that we talked about, that all Americans really want for themselves, their families, their businesses.
Elaine, I know you have to go to a meeting with our county exec, Bruce Blakeman, and I want to thank you for coming on. Elaine is up for re-election. As you can see, she is very knowledgeable, very approachable, by the way, and she loves to meet all the constituents, and she is really common sense. And she comes from a very successful private financial background professionally. So she knew how to parlay that professional experience into this. And I can't thank you enough because everybody, that's all I see all over the news. And people are calling me from all over the country. Is Mamdani going to win? Don't even say his name and don't give him extra time on social media and focus in on a strong victory where we can. And you'll be very pleasantly surprised because Nassau has very, very strong candidates locally, including Bruce Blakeman, including Elaine,
Ann Donnelly,
and
myself,
down the
Ray
list.
Phillips. Yep. And all our county legislators. So, vote for America, folks. And thank you, Cindy. Thank you very much.
Please tell our audience before you leave where they can reach you.
So you can reach out to NC Controller at NassauCountyNY.gov. That's so it's NC, Nassau County Comptroller at NassauCountyNY.gov or E. Phillips at NassauCountyNY.gov. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on LinkedIn. We have a great newsletter that comes out every 6 weeks or so. And once again, Cindy, I thank you and all your listeners. God bless you all, and God bless America.
God bless America, and have a very happy July 4th.
Thank you. Happy 4th.
Celebrate. We have a lot to celebrate. Well, people, I have to tell you that Elaine is just one of many that I'm very fortunate enough to know. And I keep telling you, local elections count. This is a perfect example of getting to know somebody who has a lot of power within your local community that wants to meet you. Somebody else who wants to meet you is David Cohn, who is the CEO of Allgemeyer. And he's going to tell you exactly what this is because, every week I like to feature somebody in the Jewish media who is going to update us on the headlines that his followers want. And he's going to tell you a little bit about the history. It's a little bit different than the other press we've had on. And also, he has a lot of international news, what's going on. So, David, thank you so much for joining us on Right for America.
Cindy, thank you so much for inviting me and having me here.
Well, I'm really excited because what I really like about your publication, and now you have your podcast as well, is that you really do some things a little different with, you have the once a year annual 100 influencers from around the world from all different backgrounds. And they're not necessarily, quote unquote, public figures and celebrities, recognizing people who stand out for their work, both Jewish and non-Jewish, in the field of supporting Jews and Zionism. Tell my audience first a little bit about the publication.
Sure. So the word Allgemeiner is actually a Yiddish word that translates as universal, global. Our media entity was founded 52 years ago, and the vision behind it was really a publication that presented something for everybody. People of all different walks of life, non-Jewish, Jewish, across the political spectrum. It really was, its origins were rooted in a different time and a different generation. But what has remained steadfast and consistent throughout our 52 years of existence is the focus on authenticity, on truth, on reporting the news factually, without distortion, without being agenda-driven, which is something that, frankly and sadly, is a bit unique in today's media milieu. So that's really at the core of who we are and what we do. Thank you for mentioning our J100. We have a big J100 gala every year that we host in New York City. It's a phenomenal event. This past year, we honored Douglas Murray. We honored famed journalist Douglas Murray. We honored the musician Matisyahu. We honored a number of philanthropists. And it's something that we do repeatedly. And like you mentioned, around that event, we release our J100 list, which is built, let's say, modeled after like the Time 100 or these different lists that basically highlight and accent and award honor to those who have impacted the world in positive ways. It could be people who are involved in philanthropy, young voices, government officials. And like you mentioned as well, we recently released a podcast, the J100 podcast. We've had 2 episodes thus far. We just had an episode with Erin Molan, the incredible media personality from Australia, who's a very strong advocate and friend of the Jewish people of Israel. We have a lot of interesting things, coming down the pike. But thank you for acknowledging and referencing those particulars.
So our audience wants to know, what are the headlines and what are people discussing the most from your publication?
So, certainly there's a lot going on, in the media today. We just came off the 12-day war, Israel and Iran. That was framed within the broader framework of the Gaza war that, sadly has been ongoing now we're almost at a 2-year inflection point. We know that Prime Minister Netanyahu is going to be at the White House this coming Monday for presumably about talks for finding an end, some sort of way for Israel to extract themselves from this terrible situation. We want to get, our hostages back. That's of prime concern and priority, and figure out, a new way forward in Gaza with hopefully new government and new players in the region. There's obviously discussion about expansion of the Abraham Accords. Certainly, Israel's, I would argue, very strong victory in the 12-day war really has reshaped the region, and it's exciting to see kind of where things are going to go from here. Obviously, we're still concerned, we're still nervous. So certainly, these are issues that are of deep concern to our constituents. In addition, there was this music festival in England this past weekend. There were some inspiring aspects of it if one studied carefully the entire array and menu of performers, but there were obviously some sickening anti-Semitic behaviors that were on display, manifest. The death to the IDF, which is a name, which is a complete distortion of what the Israeli Defense Forces are, and their job is in essence to preserve life and to work diligently to save lives, even of the adversary and of the enemy, where they're able to. It's whatever. That's the world in which we live today. It's terrible. Obviously, the New York City mayoral elections and races certainly that's. On people's minds, and in people's hearts. And I would frame that in terms of candidate Mamdani, that I think it's crucial to understand. I think people have to view this in the framework of Western values and in the framework of democracy. Let's not get fixated on anti-Semitism and on the Jewish people. I think this goes way beyond that. I think those of us that really love America, right? You're the Jew-S patriot. Those of us that love America, America first. We care about America, right? I've lived here my entire life, and I value American values, democracy. Just to have values introduced that are socialistic, that are an enigma, and that are really the antithesis of what America really stands for. I think this should concern all citizens of New York City. I think it's something that people need to pay more attention to, and to kind of read between the lines. We don't want to approach this from a perspective of just the Jewish.
I'm going to be talking about that in my closing pearls of wisdom. But I do want to ask you something, since you did bring up Australia. There is something going around our community about the anti-Semitism that's really growing at an alarming rate in Australia. And if you know anything about it that you can share with the audience, it's not getting the attention it should be getting.
So, I mean, you may know Hillel Fuld, who is a prominent media personality out of Israel. So he shared recently that he was banned from coming into Australia. His visa was revoked he was coming to speak at an event, I think it was for Magen David Adom, which is a charitable organization in Israel that basically runs hospitals. That's a life-saving endeavor. He came to speak on behalf of that organization at a fundraiser. They wouldn't let him into the country. I mean, it's completely, we're living in a bizarre universe. We're living in times where sadly, being an anti-Semite is something that is admired and rewarded. And it's an enigma, and it's something that is deeply, deeply concerning. We focus as a publication. We're an online media outlet. We're very active on our social channels, on our website, on our daily email subscription, which is free, by the way. We're very focused on these ideas of amplifying what's going on, how diaspora Jewry is being kind of under attack, both in the United States as well as in Europe and Australia, other continents. And it's something that we're working hard to bring attention to and to inspire and motivate people of good values, which I think are most people in the world. I really do believe that. But unfortunately, sometimes those who have distorted viewpoints are the ones who are screaming and yelling, and those who have good American democratic values, don't always feel the need to speak up, and they think it's a given and they think it's understood, but it's really not. And this is a time really where people have to stand up and they have to be outspoken for the values that we care so deeply about.
Any other place in the world that we're not talking enough about that you think that, or you're hearing that we should start to talk about?
So, I mean, there are, just some of the countries that you're hearing about right now vis-a-vis the Abraham Accords. Like nobody would have ever imagined that that Syria, that Lebanon, that these are places that could possibly be making, it does accent and highlight, how problematic Hamas and their mentality is. Because if you look at it in essence, based on what we're hearing, all the surrounding countries around Israel right now are basically suing for peace with Israel. They understand the repositioning in the region. They understand the power and the influence and the relationship between Israel, between Prime Minister Netanyahu, between President Trump. And it's really a realignment, and it's astounding what's happening, and what we're hearing and what we're anticipating. And then you have this little sliver of land that's still obviously holding out for what? It's not really clear what they're holding out for, other than to hold innocent people hostage and to fight a battle that nobody else even surrounding them seems to be fighting. Right, their sponsor, the head of the terrible octopus, the head of the terrible beast, Iran, has certainly been exposed as a paper tiger. And their proxies that they spent so many years investing in basically didn't come to their rescue. And you have basically, once that domino falls, we can really realign and really see a beautiful, thriving, new Riviera, hopefully, in the Middle East. And I think we're very.
It's going to be a Trump golf course with Trump towers.
Yeah, I mean, look, whether it has the Trump emblem or not, or the Trump logo or not, right. It certainly has his designs across it. But I think
I'm just kidding.
No, I understand. But at the core, I think the point is that it's sad, because I had the privilege to visit Gaza before it was occupied by Hamas and a bunch of terrorists, and it was a beautiful piece of land. And the Israeli government, for whatever calculations they made to give it back, with a hopeful intent that unfortunately didn't become the reality, and many people speculated as such. But it really is a beautiful piece of land, and it really is a place that free of terrorists and infused with people who share democratic values and understand what it means to partner with America and Israel. The potential is infinite, and it's sad that these hooligan terrorists are basically ruining it for everybody. But that's the reality that we're living in.
Well, I just want to share something, because, as you stated, what your paper represents everything and everyone and welcomes. There was this past week in Nigeria something that wasn't covered, and it wasn't a Jewish incident, but it was about Judeo-Christian people who value Judeo-Christian values, and it was like on October 7th, and women were raped and murdered, and there was nothing on it. And it's always the Jews that seem to make these kind of headlines, and it just amazes me how media really is so selective on what they choose to report and how they choose to report it. The same thing again with what's happening to Jews in Iran. There have been Jews that have been taken from their families and murdered because of what's going on, even with the ceasefire. And thank God we have a publication like yours that shares international news and talks about headlines from everywhere that affects Jews and people who support Jewish values. Tell our audience again how they could reach out to you and how they could subscribe.
Thank you. I'll just one last quick point. I'll mention that we practice what we preach. 3 out of the 4, so 75% of our full-time staff writers are actually non-Jews. And that makes us a very, very unique type of publication. because they're not agenda driven. You know, you may argue, okay, you're a Jewish media outlet, you're advocating for Israel and the Jewish people, but the truth is that 75%, as I mentioned, of our daily content is produced by non-Jews who are incredibly passionate about these issues, who understand about being on the right side of history, who understand about being accurate in their reporting. It's something that we're incredibly proud of. That really encompasses what the Allgemeiner is. So you can find us on our website, allgemeiner.com, ALGEMEINER.com is our website that has all of our daily content. We actually just hired a brand new chief growth officer who is really doing some incredible work with our social media channels. So I encourage you to follow the Allgemeiner on Instagram, on X, on formerly Twitter, on Facebook. We have now we also have other avenues of finding us on social. We have our podcast and the daily email. Of course, if you go to our website and you go to the right corner, it says subscribe. You put in your name, you put in your email address. You'll receive every evening a daily digest of brand new content produced by our writers. You'll always find something new, something different. No matter how much media you consume, you'll always find something in the Allgemeiner Daily that is covering something, that's emphasizing an aspect. There'll be op-eds from different perspectives and reputable people that you're not seeing elsewhere. So it's certainly something that I encourage you to add to your diet of media and of content, particularly about the issues that concern people who value Western democracy, who value our values, who value the contribution of the Judeo-Christian ethic in the world. I encourage, we have a TikTok channel now. Also, you can go and find us on TikTok. Anywhere where you may consume social media, you can find us. You'll find a lot of new dynamic social content. Social content. We have a digital transformation in terms of video, audio, meeting our reporters, and there's only great things coming. So I'd encourage you to join us as we're on our upward trajectory.
And we're going to cover the red carpet of the next J100.
We're very excited. We're in the very early planning stages of the event that we hope will be in the latter part of November. We're very excited about that as well. More information, I can't disclose too much about that yet.
We will have you on before that and share with us more updates. Like I said, I love to be on this network because they have an Orthodox Jewish woman on a non-Jewish network. I'm the only Jewish person here. And I love the fact that I can share, build coalitions, and work together because we're all Americans.
And I'll say, we're very grateful to our Christian friends and supporters who we work very collaboratively. I just had a meeting last week with my friend Luke Moon and the great work that they're doing in the Christian community. And we look for, like you said, we look for alliances. We look for people that are like-minded. And we can't fight this battle alone. It's a battle against Western values, and all like-minded people have to band together now and fight this fight.
We have to go on to our next guest. They've been waiting patiently in the waiting room, and we have a lot more to discuss. You'll be back, and I will see you. Have a great 4th of July, and thank you for tuning in.
Thank you. You too. Be well. Bye-bye.
I told you it was a jam-packed show with every headline possible. Now we're going to talk about AI, the very controversial AI, and yet it's like everybody is talking about. Joining us now is the author of Some Future Day, How AI is Going to Change. And joining us now is Mark Beckman. And not only is Mark an expert on AI, but he really, really is in tune of all the issues and updates of everything that MAGA and America First support. So thank you so much for tuning in. I know how busy you are, and I really appreciate you taking the time to join our audience.
Cindy, it's great to see you. How are you today?
I am great. Now, you are hearing everyday news about AI. So I want you to tell us the most important headline about AI that every one of us needs to know.
Well, look, here's the truth, Cindy. I talk about it in my new book, which you mentioned, Some Future Day, How AI is Going to Change Everything. The fact is that artificial intelligence is poised to fundamentally change our society from the top down 100%. And your audience needs to learn now. My book was built for beginners. I actually have a copy of it here, go figure. But It's built for beginners. It's built for curious people who want to learn how they could use artificial intelligence to improve their careers, create financial value, improve their families, and enhance their community life. And what I've done, Cindy, for all of the readers of the book is I've created a toolkit. So I go across different disciplines, different business sectors. If you have a creative class, if you have government officials, if you have people in finance, no matter where these backgrounds are, if they want to learn how to use artificial intelligence to make their lives better and be on trend as it fundamentally changes our society, I have all the tools for beginners in my book. At the end of every chapter, there's a call to action. They could look at the tools, whether it's data analytics or generative AI, how to create an ad campaign for a small business, or how to do some research to start a new company or raise money. It's all in the book.
So tell us, I love the fact that you said you have every aspect of life. Where do we see AI really growing, in what aspect?
Well, right now, a good area for the average person, the beginner, to get involved in, and we're seeing an upward trajectory right now in the space, is on the search side. I'm sure you and a lot of your audience might agree that the legacy search engine like Google has become substandard. For example, their advertisements are in our face. They provide us with links that are connected to advertising. And then we need to go through and do all this reading and do all this research. Well, if you use an AI search engine like ChatGPT or Perplexity, DeepSeek, maybe Grok, a lot of people in your audience, I know, tend to lean Republican and conservative, so they might like Grok. Well, if you use an AI search engine, not only do you disregard all of that advertising that Google is pushing into your face all the time, but it will provide you within a matter of minutes, not even, with a detailed outline of whatever you want in the format you prefer. So you could say, look, I want to stand up a business, a new business that allows for me to own a retail shop, or how do I go ahead and create a memorandum of law or draft a fundraising document for me to support my cosmetic company. Well, all of that kicks into play right away. The overall business of search AI is growing, Cindy. So in fact, 10% of the population has not migrated now away from Google into search AI. And just this week, Pew Research, which I'm sure you know, is providing interesting data and facts that show now a third of all American adults are already using ChatGPT on its own. So I just rattled off a ton of different search engines for your audience to use, but ChatGPT, everybody knows it, right? It's Sam Altman's company. It's owned by OpenAI, and it's an amazing tool that people could use for multiple reasons.
How did you get into this?
Oh, good question. Because my background is not technology. I own an advertising.
I mean, there's hope for all of us, especially of a certain age.
Correct. So I own an advertising agency named DMA United, and my clients include Karl Lagerfeld, Tom Ford, Sony Music, Warner Brothers, the NBA, Pepsi, Nelson Mandela. And we always, Cindy, implement an emerging technology vertical to give our clients an advantage, such as artificial intelligence. And what we focused on was both data analytics and generative AI, creating content, videos, images, script writing, music. And what we realized quickly was there are so many people like you, like your audience, that are smart and curious, but they don't know deep tech. So what I did was I leveraged both my career in advertising coupled with my role at NYU. I am Senior Fellow of Emerging Technology. I've been working at NYU for 7 years. And what I've done is I've taken the opportunity to provide all of my research, all of my studies, and my real hands-on experience to give back my lessons to the public in my book.
Well, it sounds really fascinating. And honestly, sitting here talking with you, you've made me feel like I shouldn't be so intimidated, and I've got to get the book and try it out, because you never know. I felt the same way when I started Facebook and Instagram, and you learn and you get with it. What has been your best experience with this?
Well, the thing that I love the most is on the content engine. So, Cindy, as you're aware, my agency has done some phenomenal work with regards to the First Lady of the United States of America, Melania Trump. And we helped stand up her new artificial intelligence audio book. You could find it on melaniatrump.com. It's really the first of its kind, and we're going to see a fundamental change as it relates to synthetic replica voices right now. She's the first high-profile individual, bigger than anyone, to do this. And I hope you and your audience find that not only is the voice replica perfect, but so are the pauses, the incantations, the tone. And what we're doing is we've had a big demand for her book in general, the printed book. And in turn, that's happened globally now. The book was #1 for 13 weeks, New York Times bestseller. So we have people requesting from different languages, from Hindi to Portuguese to Spanish. And now we're working on launching the book in many different languages. So for me, the most recent, biggest, most audacious project we worked on was the First Lady of the United States book, Melania.
I've been watching some stories on the various news channels, and they're talking about how fast AI is going to really grow to become everyday part of our daily routines. Where do you see this happening?
There's no doubt, Cindy. I believe that both AI and cryptocurrency are inexorably connected and will represent the biggest growth sector percentage-wise in this government, in our country over the next 3 to 4 years during the Trump administration. President Trump is already unlocking a lot of American ingenuity by deregulating these business sectors. I think the key, though, is utility and gaming. That's how we see new technologies reach the masses. So as we see tools built, like the search engine, as we see the younger generation start to adopt the new technology, we'll see the new technology become more and more ubiquitous. It's interesting because the older generation, like my age and older, I mentioned this new research study from Pew surrounding ChatGPT. So individuals who are 50 to 64%, there's a big drop off. Only 25% of people in my age demographic are using ChatGPT right now. So the key is we need utility and we need gaming to help grow this thing in a ubiquitous way.
How is this going to go into schools and start with students? Because the younger they get involved, the better. I mean, I remember there was never a computer in my school when I was in elementary school. Then in my, by the time my son was in high school, everybody had to have a school computer and a home computer.
Well, it's interesting, Cindy. There's a direct correlation that's been uncovered between more education actually equals more use of ChatGPT. Now, what does that mean? We're living in a moment where access to intelligence is being totally democratized. You could be living in a small town and you might not be able to afford a school like NYU. But now at your fingertips, everybody has one of these, right, Cindy? Everybody has a phone. So with your fingertips, you can access artificial intelligence and learn pretty much anything you want. And it's going to radically change. But I also anticipate there's going to be a war between the intelligent haves and the have-nots, because there could become a dumbing down of society. As you know, people are inherently lazy. So what happens to those individuals who just rely on their own with an AI search engine to learn about our history, et cetera? The other fear, the second fear, is centralized training of these LLMs. So DeepSeek, the Chinese LLM, is totally it's revisionism to history. So if you look at Uyghurs, they say there are no slaves. If you look at Xi Jinping, he's the Democrat elected leader. If you consider Tiananmen Square, never happened. So how do those lazy young Americans get impacted by misinformation as it relates to history?
That was my next question. I was going to be devil's advocate here. We are seeing and hearing a lot of negative responses because there's too much, I don't want to say fake news, but things that are not 100% accurate. And people are reading things and seeing things, thinking it's the real deal and it's AI. How do we fight that and have the positive images, the positive experiences?
Yeah, Cindy, it's this is a chapter in my book that I go deep into, and I show people what to look out for. There are a lot of concerns. For example, I spoke about AI audio and synthetic voices. There's financial fraud and scam happening right now. Imagine the older generation, our parents receive a phone call from you, Cindy, and it's your voice, and you say, Mom, Dad, I have a problem. Wire me right away $25,000. Why on earth would my 83, 84-year-old father ever think that that voice is not mine? So that's number one. That's a big concern. We grew up in a generation where we believed if you watch the news, seeing is believing, right? If you read it, you believe it. No longer. I'm teaching my children, my 16-year-old son and my 8-year-old daughter, if they see it, don't believe it. If you read it, verify it. Fake news is real.
Say that all the time here because I'm a journalism graduate with a master's degree from NYU, so I know exactly what you're saying. Journalism is dead in so many people's minds, and I fight it all the time. So I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, seeing is not believing. In fact, China they leveraged AI and they did a propaganda campaign into Taiwan. It was reported by Reuters, but nobody in the States really spoke about it. About a month and a half ago, it was a disinformation campaign, anti-America, anti-capitalism, trying to separate the Taiwanese from America. They hit them with fake video created by AI. They hit them with fake photography created by AI and written words. And it's interesting, Reuters was the only one that picked it up. So your audience really needs to be cognizant. It's a new world, and AI is easy to create content, voice replica, on and on. It's a dangerous time for sure.
Well, I think it's, everything moves forward, and this is just the next step. And somebody like you is going to teach our public the good and the positive from it and how to deter those that want to use it for harming and for hurting people. So we need you to come back and discuss it more. Tell everybody again the book, where they can get it, and how they can reach out to you.
So I am on all social media platforms, Marc Beckman, MarcBeckman. And the book is called Some Future Day, How AI is Going to Change Everything. And they could pick it up on Amazon. Amazon's great. Barnes & Noble is great. And all major booksellers. But go to Amazon and Barnes & Noble to start. And Cindy, thank you so much for having me. And thank you for all of your awesome work.
Well, thank you. And I have to tell you, the last few people who had a book here that came on didn't have their book with them. So, of course, you are a marketing person, so you knew to do that. I said, how do you come home without a book?
I always keep this baby with me, but it's interesting. Look at the image. This image was not created by AI. We built it out of the agency, and it's blending together the human form. We were the agency of record for the New York City Ballet for like a decade. The human form, but you might also see a robotic hand. And I think this shows where we're going. AI, robotics, and humanity, we're all about to blend, and you can learn it all here.
Thank you so much for joining Right for America. Issues that unite, don't ignite. And this is totally an arena that is going to ignite and unite us.
Thank you so much, Cindy. I appreciate you.
Thank you. You too. And with that, it's another show coming to a close. And I don't even have time for a long closing. I just wanted to share with you my closing pearls of wisdom. This weekend was the 31st memorial anniversary of the death of the Rebbe, who many of you will recognize in pictures of the Chabad Hasidic movement. And many of us from all over the world spent this past weekend with special celebrations and memorials and reflections, and of course, going to where the rabbi is buried, the Rebbe, and saying prayers and asking for peace and health and wealth for all of us. But I want to tell you something and how it relates to today and the New York City primary. Blacks and Hispanics did not choose a socialist candidate. They went with Andrew Cuomo. Jews and Blacks must work together in the general election and rebuild a relationship that they once had in order to save New York. And I can't think of a better situation than to recall the meeting of then Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm in 1969 with the Rebbe. And it was because of their initial meeting and follow-up conversations that Congresswoman Chisholm, the first African-American woman elected to Congress, was able to sponsor and get put into law the food stamps and food for hungry. Because the words of the rabbi, and I'm not going to quote it exactly, but I'm going to basically paraphrase them, was about nobody should go without milk and nobody should go without food. And she was inspired by him, and they had a friendship that lasted for years. If you want to save New York, rebuild the Black and Jewish relationship. With that, I really have to go. It's Cindy Gross, the Jewess Patriot. Thank you for tuning in to Right for America. And again, have a great, happy 4th of July and be proud Americans. God bless America. God bless our troops. God bless President Trump. God bless the IDF and everybody in Israel. Thank you, and I'll see you next week.